Okay, so we were talking about the independence movement in Mexico, which hopefully is going to go on the screen in just a minute here. Okay, so real quick, let me remind you that Morales has taken over because they killed Father Hidalgo because they thought who's they? They killed him because the Creoles, correctly, because they thought he was too radical. They were like, oh no, we did not want to help everybody else, we just want to help ourselves, therefore you have to die. And then his predecessor is even more radical because he's not even a Creole. He was a mestizo priest, Jose Maria Morales, and as we've learned, he will be successful for a few years with the insurgency, but eventually is captured and executed in 1815 when more Spanish troops are sent to Mexico, and he's defeated by firing squad. Okay, so that's kind of where we were. So we were saying, when the bell rang, what is going to be the thing that will unify and get Mexico out of this anarchy? And I said, as the bell was ringing, that it will actually be Spain, because during this time, the Spanish come up with a new constitution, okay, that they are going to try to push onto their colonies. And Spain declares itself a constitutional monarchy in the wake of all of this, and in their constitutional monarchy declaration, they decide that they will reduce the power of the Catholic Church. One of the provisions in that constitutional monarchy is that there will be reduced power of the Catholic Church. That single factor will cause everyone in Mexico, or what was New Spain, to come together as one, although they had all been on different pages. And why would they do that? Considering we just came out of assembly on this.
Because the goose looked at them.
The what?
The goose looked at them.
The goose looked at them. No, besides the goose. What had Spain messed with? It was super important to all of the colonists, the religion. Okay, and power of the religion, because remember, even the Creoles and the Peninsulares had high positions within the Catholic Church. There was a lot of power dating back to Ferdinand and Isabella that was associated with the Spanish Catholic Church. And so whenever this directive comes that we're going to reduce that power and the church is not going to be that important, it's still okay, kind of from Napoleon's civil codes, and he's like, okay, they conquered out, we can have the Catholic Church, but at the same time, it's not going to be, put more power in the state. They were not happy with that. And that's a shockingly surprising thing, because even the lower classes were very, the church, the Catholic life was very important to them. So that thing was very important to bring them together, because they feared, the upper classes feared they would lose their privileges, and so they unite. So we see the Peninsulares and the Creoles come together as one to fight for independence of the Spanish country. All right, so it starts first with the upper classes, Creoles and Peninsulares. And so what happens is the Catholic Church will gain the support of those who had been royalists. What does that mean? They had been supporting Spain, right? But at this point, now that Spain has gone this wonky direction that nobody likes, now anyone who is a royalist is going to throw their support behind the Catholic Church in an effort to declare independence from Spain. So that brings in our friend Iturbide, who was in your book after Morales, or after Miguel Hidalgo this weekend. And Iturbide is important because what did you write in your notes about him? He's the second important guy after Miguel Castillo that you read about in this section. Yeah.
Does he actually gets the independence?
Yes, he does.
And makes a dictatorship.
Yes, which is kind of, what's the point? Henry's right. He is the official person to declare Mexico independent in 1821, and it is under his leadership that Mexico becomes free of Spain. As Henry said, a little spoiler alert, we'll get to in a minute, he will actually make it a military state and a dictatorship. So there was scheming for independent of leadership, and the Augustine Iturbide was a Creole elite. By the way, he's Creole. Okay, he offered peace and reconciliation to the insurgents, and if they accepted. So one of the things he wanted to do, and that sounds silly, but that's what he said, was now he had to get control of the lower classes, which was the insurgency who had originally been led by Father Miguel Hidalgo and his groups, and then later Morales. So he gives them a plan he calls a peace and reconciliation. What does that mean? I offer you peace and reconciliation. If you're a lower class citizen, so what? What does that mean? You what?
You don't get treated poorly.
Okay, that's kind of it. Like we were not going to harass you, maybe. Peace is a very open, broad term, right? Does reconciliation, what does that mean?
Forgiveness?
Yeah, right? Kind of like let's be friends. But does it address, those words address any of the major problems that the lower classes had?
No.
No, it's just like let's be friends. Let's not fight. And at this point, they don't really have a chance. Okay, so Morales was dead. We went over that. So they have a new leader. His name was Guerrero. And I can't roll my R's again. But it's Guerrero. 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 And he was the new leader of the insurgency, the lower class fighters of the revolution. And he agrees to this because it's really their only chance to win anything. Like there's no other option except to accept Iturbide, peace and reconciliation, whatever that may be, and he thinks that's the only thing that they're going to get. All right? So they all come together in this loose agreement in September of 1821 when, as Henry says, Iturbide is declared and confirmed Emperor of Mexico. Okay? And this is kind of what that looks like. Okay, so this is kind of what his piece was about. Okay, so guaranteeing land rights are rights of landowners, guaranteeing rights of church, guaranteeing rights of peninsulares. What's missing? Not Creoles, because he's a Creole.
Just the lower class.
Just the lower classes. The only group that's left out of here is lower classes, and they were the ones that were like accepting this peace. So guess what? If you have land, we're going to guarantee it. Does anybody but Peninsulares and Creoles have land? No. We're going to guarantee the rights of the church. That kind of pacified most people because they like the church. But for the most part, once again, the high officials in the court or in the churches were the Peninsulares and the Creoles. And then, oh, by the way, if you're a Peninsulare, you can stay here if you want to. We're going to guarantee your rights, even though you just have to accept now that we're equal with you, Creoles and Peninsulares. So you can choose to stay here or you can go back to Spain. But that's it. So the ultimate results are the sinister pictures, right? Okay. My symbolism in my pictures, you can figure it out. My attempt.
I really like things.
You like that?
It's beautiful.
With the ruthlessly suppressed emoji.
This is kind of a little off topic, but you were saying we had the reading quiz. I was wondering, since there's like if we get 18 or more, we get 1 on the test. Since there's 2, could we possibly get 2 points on the test?
Yeah, because you'll have 2 people this.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we go into that causation essay, you have the possible 2. Oh, by the way, on the test you just got, your first reading quiz, if you got a +1, was added to that. So whenever you see your score, if you got an 18 or higher, it's a +1. So when you actually come in, if you come in to see your test, you'll see that, well, oh, I got a point higher. It's because you got that 90% or higher on reading quiz 1. And then the second and third one are added towards the causation essay on Friday. Okay. And at the end, like we said, it's all numerator and denominator anyway, it's all points, so you just get extra points when you get those. Okay, so, as we said, was this a major revolution or not?
No.
No, not so much, and that's the story of Latin America. Nothing really changes except for independence. Political independence, that's really everything that they get. There's no big social upheaval, there's no big, I mean, you can argue economics because it's not mercantilism anymore, but in all general, you know, if you're looking at the big picture, the rich keep getting rich and the poor keep getting poor, and the same people who held the power are continuing to hold the power where the view changes. So that's pretty much it. You know, that's why in 1900 we're going to see another wave of revolutions and government change in Latin America, and why there are still problems in Latin America today. So you have all of these things, not so good for the lower classes. Okay, that is Mexico in a nutshell. Ready to move on? Oh, hey, just kidding. Caudillo rule. That's going to be important in all Latin American places. Caudillo is italicized. Why? It's a vocab word, right? So somebody raise your hand and remind everybody else what caudillos are and what it means, Brian.
Charismatic strongmen with local authority.
Yes, charismatic strongmen with local authority. Mostly what kind of experience do those men have?
Military.
Yes. Okay, so military dictators. That's what we're talking about. For the most part, after Iturbide, remember Iturbide is taken down pretty shortly after he takes over in 1823 and is replaced by yet more and more military dictators. Most of you probably, hopefully, remember a man by the name of Santa Anna, correct? Who's Santa Anna?
Mexico.
Yes, during the Alamo in Mexico. He was a caudillo ruler in Mexico during the Alamo, during that time of Texas history. So he is one of those people that will follow in line after Iturbide ruling Mexico. So this line of military strongmen becoming military dictators. Is it a constitutional government if it is a military dictatorship? No. Then why do they continue to refer to themselves as constitutional?
People think.
Well, what do they have that they're like, oh, we have a constitution, but our constitutions can say like make us dictator for life, okay? So it's kind of like today we have the Democratic Republic of Korea or Democratic Republic of Congo, China, like People's Republic of China. They can say a republic all day long, but the reality of does it really represent what the republics are supposed to be? No. Okay, so no. All right, so next part. Oh, sorry.
So for Haiti, but is Haiti the only one that has a social upheaval? For the revolution?
Yeah, no, France does too. France has a major. So does
Latin America.
Latin America. Let's say Haiti is in Latin America. You have to be careful with that, but it is treated differently because it's a French colony. So the Haitian Revolution and the French Revolution are the really only ones that have a major social turnover. I mean, not even the American Revolution. You could argue it's still kind of white, rich men with property. But Haiti and French, if you're thinking in your mind, those are definitely the most radical.
When I was doing the notes, I saw on the map that Haiti came free in 1804, and it said Ecuador came free in 1803.
Oh, I don't know. I have to look at that. Yeah, because Haiti was the first revolution to start, but it might have taken longer to finish. So that wasn't probably because Haiti starts in 1791, and I have to see when Ecuador starts because Ecuador is going to be part of that. The one after Iturbide that extends into Bolivar and all that. Yeah. Okay, so that is Bolivar, right? Ryan has identified our man. Liberation of South America. Now we're moving south of what we would call Central America today, or Mesoamerica. All right, so let's talk about him. His story is a little more complicated. Let's see, I think I'm more. There we go. And y'all, didn't we do Bolivar in here for our video? Yeah. All right, so we have some expertise in the house.
This one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Are we going to be watching the videos in class?
After I go through all of them and grade them, the top 5. And then I put all of them on the haiku, and you can watch as many as you want. But we will look at and vote on the top 5.
Like the teachers will vote on the top 5?
No, you will. All the classes, all 74 of y'all. The top 5 will be.
Oh, so but we're not gonna go through all of our. Oh, we're
No.
gonna watch all of our classes.
No. Like you only get to see the 5 of each of the classes. I will put all of them on the
Oh,
IQ.
that's how we vote.
I grade them. No, I choose the top 5. Like I get that. I get one from. I will pick the best one in my opinion from each of the 5 periods, which is not just production, but that you do everything on the rubric and all that stuff. And then I will release those 5. We'll view those, and then you will vote on which one you think is the best. Depending on time, I either put my IQ, but I will put for your viewing pleasure, assuming that they're all appropriate, all of the links to all of them that you can watch if you choose. That's always fun. Okay. Okay, so Simon Bolivar. So we have the beginning of, okay, first of all, it doesn't say, where is he from? It kind of says, if you know where Caracas is. Where is he from? Venezuela. Venezuela. This is why it's like we have, yes, he did lead. He goes to Colombia next. Okay, so he was a symbol and hero of liberation struggle in northern South America. So he's kind of our northern guy. And he is from Venezuela. He is a Creole. Notice that's a pattern. Almost everybody who starts the revolutions are Creoles. In the French Revolution, what would be the comparable class to the Creoles? Because they're all kind of from the same group. Maximilien Robespierre and all those people were from which class? But bigger than that. They were from the third estate, but which level of the third estate? What do we call that class? And later Karl Marx will call it the same thing. The bourgeoisie. Right, the upper middle class, right? So they are essentially the same, the wealthy non-nobles, okay? In the Haitian Revolution, who would be the comparable people that would fit that status? The gens de couleur, absolutely, are those people who are a little below the white planters. So notice that's a trend of all of them, that the Sparks are the leaders of the revolution, and George Washington, Sam Adams, all those people come from that same sort of social class. They're not nobles, but they're usually very influential and have property and money. Okay, so he's from Venezuela, he's a Creole. He read a lot of Enlightenment. He was obviously very much scholarly and studied. He studied in Europe. Remember, just because you're a Creole didn't mean you couldn't get education. So he had been all over Europe. He had traveled all over Europe. He had studied every type of military strategy and history. He had looked at the best things. So he was very knowledgeable about taking leadership in an army. But the problem is that after this April 8, 1810 takeover, where the Creoles forced the abdication of the Spanish and Caracas, that sounds easy. Oh, great, they're gone. They were not on the same page. Same thing that we saw happen in Mexico. So they're in power, but they don't agree what to do amongst themselves. Same thing you saw happen in France after the storming of the Bastille. You had conservatives, radicals, moderates, a whole bunch of things happening in the National Assembly leading up to the convention. So how to handle this was where he had problems. So this first takeover is not going to go as well as they thought, because some people, the Peninsulares, they were like, forget this, we're getting out of here. And so a lot of the Peninsulares leave to go to places like Cuba and Puerto Rico because they don't want anything to change, and they're like, we're just going to leave, forget it. Some of the people in the Creole group want immediate independence. Like, let's do this now. Those would be our Patrick Henrys, right? Give me liberty or give me death. Let's not mess around. So you have a faction of radicals. And of course, Bolivar was in that group. He wanted immediate independence. But then some people wanted to postpone independence. Let's wait. Our Ben Franklins, maybe we can talk about this and sit down at the table and let's see what we can come up with. So you have all these different opinions within the Creole group that is now in charge. Do we go for independence? Do we not? What do we change? What do we not? And it's this waiting period that gets them in trouble. I keep losing my little thing. Here we go. No point in having it if I don't use it. Okay. Bolivar is sent. He's young at this time. He's sent to England to solicit financial aid. Okay, so they send him, kind of like I said, I bring up Ben Franklin, kind of like Ben tries to go to Europe to get some help and get everybody to support the American Revolution cause. He's sent to England to get aid, and when he leaves Miranda in charge of what becomes the Patriot Army. Like, I'm going, take care of things, don't mess up, I'll see you soon. Don't mess up is the key word, right? Because when somebody in power leaves and gives you power, sometimes what happens?
You don't want to give it back.
You're like, I'm in power. It's my turn. I'm going to do what I want. That's what Miranda tries to do. So he establishes in 1811 or declares what we call the first Republican Congress in Venezuela. But not everybody agrees. They're like, we don't like you. Okay, so just like everywhere else, they establish a constitution. The Congress proclaims Venezuela independent, and this is the constitution that they put before the people. And then after I read you what he wants, you're going to tell me why he doesn't have supports of either the Republicans or the Royalists. So first of all, who are the Republicans? Who want? Yeah, Patriot Independence, right? So this radical group, we would call them the Republicans. They want a republic, they want to be free. And then, of course, the Royalists are those that are more likely to support Spanish, right? They like status quo. They don't want to get away. Okay, so Miranda says he wants to, you'll tell me who this reminds you of in a minute too, he wants to get rid of those indigenous tributes and privileges. Let's not have that anymore. Who else did we learn about last week that wanted to get rid of those privileges? Father Hidalgo, right? So he's like, no more tribute or privileges. It's not right. They don't deserve that. Let's bring everybody up to par. But he's not so nice because he's like, let's keep slavery. We don't want to get rid of that. We want to keep Catholicism as the state religion. We like that. Let's keep that. Limit the rights of citizenship to property owners. Like, you can only vote, become a, quote, citizen only if you have property, which sounds like America, yeah, the United States. But if you're a mulatto property owner, you can't be a citizen. Wow. Yeah. So which group is he targeting racism towards?
Mulattoes.
Well, not just mulattoes, because remember, he wanted to retain slavery as well.
Yeah.
So anybody that has any kind of African descent or black descent or heritage, he's like, no. Mestizos he didn't call out. He only called out mulattoes and retaining the slavery. Okay, because once again, remember, they are terrified of what happened where? In Haiti. Okay, and they don't want that to happen. Okay, so once again, going back to my question, why don't the Republicans like him? What are some of the things I said that they may be like, no, that's too conservative?
That's slavery.
Okay, no, well, retaining slavery was okay for them. They like social classes, so it was the one before that that kind of gets them mad. Abolishes the Native American privileges. In fact, like, wait, we don't need everybody to be equal, just us, Maybe the Catholic and state religion, they may want a little bit of that lesson, but not so much. And then, of course, if you're mulatto and you're a property owner and as a Republican, you wouldn't like that rule either. So there was that. And then the supporters of the Spanish side, wanting to have everything Spain, they would pretty much not like what?
The giving of a tribute.
Yeah, giving up a tribute, definitely. Including all property owners who are not Peninsulars, right? They only want the upper class people to do it. So no support on any sides. He's not making anybody happy. On top of this, his army is falling apart because his younger officers are disagreeing with him and they have loyalty to Bolivar. So they're just like, you don't know what you're doing. We don't like you. He starts losing control. And life hates him too. not just his people, because the special effects in my PowerPoint clearly are awesome. Okay. On top of him losing support, there is an earthquake. Good old Mother Nature comes in. And the majority of the damage of this earthquake that hits is in the places where the Republican armies are located. Like, they get pummeled by this earthquake. So the church has propaganda that goes out there, especially like royalist propaganda. God doesn't like you because he's destroying your army and your supporters with this natural disaster. And of course, there's no bigger voice than God telling people that you need to go away. And so the public is like, yes, this is a sign. We do not like this guy. So he attempts to run away. He leaves town and he takes the treasury with him.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was stupid.
Not so good. I'm going to take all the money. Forget about it. Bolivar, well, if he would have got away, right? Bolivar's returns at this point, and he's the one who turns him in to the Spanish. So he's like, you sold us out. We're going to do a little Joan of Arc action, and we're going to turn you over to the people we're fighting and let them decide what you're going to do to them. So he turns him over to the Spanish, and he's in prison, and he's sent to Spain, where he dies. Okay, so Miranda's gone, Bolivar is back, but what does Bolivar return to? Like, nobody's on board anymore. Like, what happened? So where does he go, Brian? You said in the beginning you thought he was from there. Yes. So he has to pick up the pieces, and he has to go find some people to support him. And the Colombians are ready to support him because they have a little bit more of a stronghold against the Spanish right now. So he goes to his neighbors. Bolivar people, feel free to jump in anytime. If we're missing any pieces of your video story.
So, Miss Wainwright,
Uh-huh.
were these countries at the time just all one big Spanish colony?
They were all New Spain, or part of New
So
Spain and
it
Portugal.
wasn't like he went, oh, I'm going to Colombia. It was just
No,
like
he was just going
went
to
to
the
that
neighboring
area.
province, or at the time, remember they were viceroyalties because they were controlled viceroys. So yeah, the modern day terms are what we have them, but that's to make it for practical purposes so that we recognize it. But yes, it's all part of the big control of the New Spanish region.
So then the Mexican independence was just one viceroyalty?
Right, New Spain.
Wait, so technically the area that is now Venezuela was included in Mexican independence?
No, New Spain is what's called, what we would consider Mesoamerica. South America was split by the Treaty of Tordesillas, if y'all remember from last year, between the Pope, and then the western half went to Spain, and then the eastern half went to Brazil or Portugal. So and within there, there's several different viceroyalties. You can actually look up the map and you can tell which is which. So all of them are controlled by the Iberian Peninsula.
But what's the difference between the South American independence versus Mexican?
They're led by different people, and each chunk of land has different independence. They're each getting, the different territories are getting independence at different times, led by different people. So, but it's still the same person or group that they're getting independence from. So it's like they're chipping away at their empire little by little by little, but they're different people doing it. Does that make sense? It's kind of like what's going to happen to other empires. It's all, yes, all of the causes are replied to Mexico, Venezuela, Colombia, and that's why your chapter, when you got to this part, started with causes first because they umbrella all of Latin America. And that's why when I started this PowerPoint, they umbrellaed all of there. And I mean, of course, there's smaller causes for each, but they're all fighting the same enemy, okay? Okay, so Bolivar, he's here. He's like, what have you done? This isn't cool. So he goes to Colombia. He finds a similar struggle between the Criollas there. He has to gain support. He can't just come in and say, hey, I'm here to help. Let me take over. So he gains support going through which ranking level? How does he get people to be drawn to him and to follow him? What is he good at? Military. Okay, so he volunteers for the military. They follow him. He's a great leader. And then he says, wow, we've won Colombia. Let's go back and liberate Venezuela. Okay, and then we'll continue at some point. I'll have to decide. We don't have too much.
And then we're in Venezuela, are they independently from like Colombia, or like are they basically like the same as like or like were they like independently like separated like were they actually like Colombia and then Venezuela?
Yeah, well, no, because they're both healthy. They become what?
They
They become the big
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, so they just like kind of like
And then they break off and split it
yeah.
into their own thing. Because everybody wants. Hold on, y'all. Let me finish recording and doing all this wonderful stuff before. Oh, where is it? You're welcome. Hold on, where's my thing? This is great. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. I gotta stop this and I can't figure it out. Here we go. Stop.